Hey guys, and welcome to Taylor Tech. Today we're going to take a look at the Nady SCM-960 studio condenser microphone. This little guy is packed full of features, so let's take a dive and see if it's worth what you pay for it. So in the box you get the microphone itself, a ring-style mount for the microphone, a little pleatherette storage and carrying bag, a short user guide, and that's it. Now the microphone itself has a really short body, is very compact overall in size, which I like. It's an all-metal construction. There's threading at the bottom section of the microphone for the ring-style mount. You've got the two switches on the front, one for polarity and one for the pad, and a gold and black color scheme, which I really like. In terms of specs, this guy has a 1-inch double-sided diaphragm, a 25 to 20 kilohertz frequency response range, less than 200 ohm impedance, negative 35 decibel voltage sensitivity, 19 decibel A-weighted self-noise, 125 decibel max SPL, and 76 decibel signal-to-noise ratio. So next, let's take a look at the features that we were talking about this guy being packed with. The first are right there on the front of the microphone and easy to see. You've got a polarity switch allowing you to either use an omnidirectional polarity or a cardioid polarity. You've also got a negative 10 decibel or negative 20 decibel pad that you can apply. Both of these features are nice. The polarity doesn't matter as much to me for my applications. When you're sitting at a desk, generally you only want one side of the conversation. However, if you're doing a podcast with a guest, you could put the microphone between you and the guest and both be picked up by it equally. The pad can be very nice. Since it is such a sensitive microphone, if your recording space is not the greatest, you can pad it to make it less sensitive. Of course, understanding you'll have to make that up with gain on the back end. The final feature, which is kind of cool in this microphone, is it's got an internal shock mount. And what they mean by an internal shock mount is it has the capsule in there actually rocks, and you can hear that. Let's see if that'll hear that kind of rattling sound. When I first pulled it out of the box, I actually thought it was broken, and I was getting ready to contact Nady customer support, but I figured I'd plug it in once and just try it because that seemed kind of weird, and it worked fine. Except when I would rock it, it would cut out. And what I eventually learned was that this is actually the internal shock mount working the way it's supposed to. So your standard condenser microphone is usually damaged when it receives a shock that causes the two plates of the diaphragm to touch and ground out. And that can cause them to arc. When they ground out, that can cause them to kind of spot weld together, and then the microphone will never work again. That's the most common way for a condenser microphone to die. So what Nady has done is basically put a way for the microphone to short itself out safely and dump all of the voltage in the condenser quickly so that the condenser element, the actual diaphragm, is not damaged in a shock. One downside to this is that if that is inadvertently tripped at some point during a recording, you'll get a loud pop that can be painful to listen to if you weren't expecting it. In terms of price, this guy is about 50 to 70 bucks on Amazon, depending on what sales you catch. So before we jump into the conclusions, let's take a quick listen and see what we think of the microphone. All right, so for the purposes of this comparison, we're going to be A-Bing it against the Nady SCM-800, which we've got right here. Right now, we've got our EQ zeroed. We both are set at 50% gain, and dynamics processing is off for both microphones. So we're just getting a clear natural signal, and our volume is set to unity. So let's go ahead and mute the lav. We'll start with the 800, then we'll go to the 960. So this is the SCM-800 at that good 6 to 8 inch distance with just a natural normal speaking voice. And this is the SCM-960, same distance, everything is set the same on the board, so all you're getting is the difference between the two microphones. Okay, so now we're listening to the SCM-800. We've got the expander set to 25-30 decibels in terms of when it starts expanding. The compressor is at about a 2.5 ratio and also engages about where the expander lets off. Same settings for the 960, so let's listen to the 960. And so here's the 960 with dynamics processing. I feel like, generally speaking, the 960 is a little bit louder. It's a little bit more articulate and clearer. The 800 is just a little bit muffled to me, where the 960 is clearer and seems to have a broader range. Overall, it feels like a more natural sound than the 800. So overall, I feel like this microphone sounds amazing, a lot better than my Lav, which if you've watched my review of this lavalier microphone, you know I don't like it at all. You may have noticed that it's just a little bit more sensitive than the 800. The slightly higher volume level you were hearing is the 960 being just a hair more sensitive. Again, it's more articulate across frequency ranges and kind of has a more natural sound to it. I also feel like once you turn dynamics processing on, got the compressor and the expander involved, the 960 just was leaps ahead of the 800. So some of the things I really like about the 960 are it's more compact size than other studio condenser microphones. The ring mount for it is something I really like. That makes it take up a lot less space than like a bulky shock mount. You know, you always want to use a shock mount with a condenser microphone to make sure that it's not damaged in the event it gets bumped or bonked while phantom power is engaged. But it's kind of awkward and bulky to have them in these big spider mounts like this. The 960 having that internal shock mount is really a nice feature, although it's a bit of a two-edged sword. So we're going to listen to what happens when you accidentally activate that internal shock mount. So let's turn the 960 on and then hear that loud pop as you rock it back and forth. As you rock it back and forth, you can hear it activating that internal shock mount where it dumps all of the power out of the capsule to prevent it from inadvertently damaging the diaphragm. This can make mounting this microphone a little bit difficult and using it a little bit difficult because there are certain things you can't do. You can't mount it inverted, and you can't mount it where it is perfectly vertical. If you notice, I've actually got it on a little bit of an angle. That's setting it back like that helps keep the diaphragm to one side or the other and not sitting centered. When you really get into trouble is when it's perfectly vertical and the capsule sits right in the center. That's when it hits that activation point. And also, if you invert it, it will constantly be dumping the capsule and constantly hitting its internal shock mount activation point. It makes the mic basically unusable in that orientation. So overall, I really like this microphone. I think it sounds great, but that internal shock mount, unfortunately, can create some issues. I think it would be fine for any kind of recording session, whether it be vocal or instrumental, or recording a podcast. But if you're going to be live streaming your podcast or doing game streaming, it might be more of a hindrance than a help, that internal shock mount, because when it does activate, it's really loud and annoying, as you heard. And I don't know that I would necessarily want to risk that happening during a live performance. So my final recommendation on this microphone is yes, but situationally, depending on what it is you're going to be using the microphone for. All right, guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, throw a like on it. Also, leave any comments or questions you have for me in the comment section down below. I love interacting with you all. If this is your first time to this channel, please hit that subscribe button for more great content like this in the future. And finally, if you'd like to support my channel, you can do so by using the Amazon affiliate link in the description section down below. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one.